Folks, we need to talk. Roughly 175 kilometres west of Alice Springs, a ring of rust-coloured hills rises abruptly out of the flat central Australian desert, standing 180 metres tall and stretching close to 5 kilometres across. From the ground, it looks almost like an ordinary, if unusually circular, mountain range. From the air, its true shape becomes impossible to miss, a near-perfect ring punched directly into the heart of the continent. What actually created it did not come from anywhere on Earth at all. Colonists named the site Goss's Bluff, after explorer Ernest Giles passed through the region in 1872 and named it in honour of Henry Goss, brother of fellow explorer William Goss, who led the expedition Giles was part of. For close to a century afterward, the site was treated as little more than an unusual, oddly symmetrical range of hills, a curiosity of the central Australian landscape, nothing more. That assumption held right up until the 1960s, when geologists studying the rock formations at the site identified something called shatter cones embedded throughout the structure. Distinctive, fan-shaped fracture patterns that form in rock under only one specific set of conditions: the extreme, near instantaneous pressure generated by a major cosmic impact. Goss's Bluff, it turned out, was not a mountain range at all. It was the eroded, exposed heart of an enormous impact crater, struck by an asteroid or comet roughly 600 metres wide, travelling at a speed capable of tearing directly through the Earth's crust. Later research pinned the impact date to approximately 142.5 million years ago, right around the boundary between the Jurassic and Cretaceous periods, with more recent uranium-lead dating narrowing that estimate even further. At the moment of impact, the resulting crater is estimated to have stretched across 22 kilometres, one of the largest impact structures ever confirmed on the Australian continent. What stands there today, the 5 kilometre wide ring of hills visible from the ground, is only the deeply eroded central uplift of that original structure. The compressed, rebounded core of rock that was violently forced upward from far beneath the crater floor in the instant following impact. Everything else, the outer rim, the original crater walls, the visible scale of what must have been an almost unimaginable explosion, has been worn away by roughly 140 million years of wind, water and time. Geologists estimate the ground across the site has eroded down by close to 2 full kilometres since the impact first occurred, meaning the structure visible today sits at a level that, at the moment of impact, would have been buried deep beneath the original crater floor. Confirmation of the site's origin did not come from shatter cones alone. Subsequent studies identified planar deformation features inside individual quartz grains collected from the site, microscopic fracture patterns that only form under shock pressures generated by a genuine hypervelocity impact. Researchers have also documented an extremely rare high-pressure mineral called rhyolite, preserved within zircon crystals recovered from the crater, requiring shock pressures in excess of 40 gigapascals to form, a level of instantaneous force almost impossible to replicate through any process other than a direct cosmic impact. Between the shatter cones, the quartz deformation, and the rhyolite-bearing zircons Goss's Bluff, stands today as one of the most thoroughly scientifically confirmed impact structures anywhere on the Australian continent. Before we go further, I want to mention something that ties directly into a discovery like this one. I put together an ebook called The Timeline Lie, covering 15 documented sites across every Australian state where peer-reviewed research has quietly rewritten the history most of us were taught in school. Evidence that is decades old, fully verified, and still barely known outside academic circles. If a site like this genuinely fascinates you, that book goes even deeper into the parts of this country's past that were never properly explained to the public. The link is below this video if you would like to take a look. To the Western Arrernte people, the traditional custodians of this land, the site carries a different name entirely. They call it Tnorala, and it holds deep, sacred significance that long predates any European account of the region. According to Arrernte tradition, in the dreaming, a group of celestial women danced as stars across the Milky Way. One of them, carrying a baby in a wooden basket known as a turner or coolaman, grew tired as the dancing continued. She set the basket aside. As the dance went on, the basket toppled from its place among the stars, and the baby inside plunged down toward the earth. The infant struck the ground with such force that the surrounding rock was driven violently upward, forming the circular mountain range that still stands there today. The child's mother became the evening star, and the child's father became the morning star. And according to the tradition, they continue searching the sky for their lost baby to this very night. Read purely as mythology, that story functions exactly the way you would expect a dreaming narrative to function. A powerful, symbolic account explaining an unusual feature in the landscape through ancestral action. Read alongside the geological record, something else becomes difficult to ignore. An object falling from the sky. A violent, instantaneous impact. Rock forced upward with tremendous force at the exact location where that object struck. Every physical detail embedded in the Arrernte account of Tnorala maps directly onto what geologists now understand actually happened at this site roughly 142 million years ago, a level of correspondence that researchers studying Aboriginal astronomical traditions have described as genuinely remarkable. If you are finding this as extraordinary as I am, make sure you are subscribed, because Tnorala is not the only Australian impact site where this same pattern has emerged, and what it might suggest about the depth of Aboriginal oral history is still being seriously studied today. Researchers specialising in Aboriginal astronomy, including work published by Dwayne Hamaka, have documented comparable impact origin stories connected to several other confirmed Australian craters, including Wolf Creek in Western Australia and Henbury, only a short distance from Tnorala itself. In some cases, researchers have argued that certain oral traditions tied to these sites may preserve genuine knowledge of the original impact events stretching back thousands of years, potentially some of the oldest continuously maintained oral accounts of a specific historical event anywhere in the world. That claim remains an active, ongoing area of research rather than a fully settled conclusion. And scientists studying these traditions are careful to note that not every crater associated with Aboriginal storytelling necessarily preserves a literal eyewitness account passed down since the original impact. But the pattern across multiple independent sites, all describing a sudden, violent object falling from the sky and striking the exact location where a genuine impact crater now stands, is difficult to dismiss as pure coincidence. Today, Tnorala sits within the Tnorala Conservation Reserve, jointly managed with the ongoing involvement of Western Arrernte traditional owners, including custodians from the community of Tnorala, also known as Hermannsburg. Certain areas within the site remain restricted, accessible only with specific permission and adherence to cultural protocols established by traditional owners, protecting elements of the site considered too sacred for general public access. Even the site's more recent industrial history carries its own strange footnote. During the 20th century, the crater's unusual geology attracted petroleum exploration companies, hoping the impact structure might have trapped oil or gas reserves deep beneath the surface. 2 exploration wells were eventually drilled near the centre of the crater. Neither ever proved commercially viable, and both now sit abandoned. A quiet, largely forgotten industrial footnote layered on top of a site already carrying 142 million years of geological history, and quite possibly thousands of years of accurately preserved human memory. What makes Goss's Bluff, or Tnorala, genuinely remarkable is not simply its scale, though a crater that once measured 22 kilometres across is difficult to comprehend standing at ground level today. It is the collision between 2 entirely separate systems for recording an event this catastrophic. One measured in uranium-lead isotope ratios and shock pressures calculated in gigapascals. The other carried forward through generations of dance, ceremony, and story, both converging on the same fundamental account. Something fell from the sky. It struck the Earth with tremendous, world-altering force, and the ground has never fully recovered from it. Standing at the base of that ring of eroded hills today, it is easy to see only weathered red rock and scattered desert scrub, the kind of landscape a passing traveller might photograph without a second thought. What actually happened there, according to both the physical evidence buried in the rock itself and the oldest continuously maintained knowledge system associated with this land, was violent enough to briefly reshape the surface of an entire continent, and significant enough that, one way or another, it was never allowed to be forgotten. The scientific journey to properly understanding Tnorala took considerably longer than the story itself suggests. Geologist Robert Dietz, whose 1967 paper on the shatter cone orientation at Goss's Bluff helped formally establish the site's impact origin, was working within a broader field, still, at the time, treating the very idea of Earth-based impact craters with significant scepticism. For much of the 20th century, many geologists assumed that visible impact structures were primarily a feature of airless worlds like the Moon, where no weather or tectonic activity existed to erase them, and were reluctant to accept that Earth's own surface, despite constant erosion and geological renewal, could still preserve evidence of a violent cosmic collision from 142 million years in the past. Tnorala became one of the sites that helped shift that broader scientific consensus, standing as clear, physical proof that Earth's own deep history includes exactly the kind of catastrophic impact events more commonly associated with other planets and moons across the solar system. That broader context matters because it places Tnorala within a genuinely small, elite category of impact sites anywhere on the planet. Australia is currently home to around 30 confirmed impact craters, ranging in age from a few thousand years old to well over 1 billion, making the continent one of the richest places on Earth to study this kind of event, largely thanks to its remarkably old, stable, and relatively undisturbed geology compared to more tectonically active regions elsewhere in the world. Within that group, Tnorala stands out specifically for the combination of its scale, its exceptional physical preservation despite nearly 142 million years of erosion, and now, increasingly, for the remarkable correspondence between its geological record and the oral tradition, still actively maintained by the Western Arrernte people who call it home. Elder Mavis Malbunka, whose husband Herman Malbunka served as traditional custodian of Tnorala from the community of Ontario, has spoken publicly about the story's origin and continued significance, describing an account passed down through generations of her family long before any geologist ever set foot at the site with instruments capable of measuring shock pressure or isotope ratios. That kind of direct, living testimony is not something that exists for most ancient geological events studied anywhere in the world. Impact craters on other continents are typically understood purely through physical science, stripped of any human account of the event itself, simply because no continuous culture survived nearby long enough or maintained an oral tradition strong enough to carry that memory forward. Tnorala is different, standing as one of a genuinely small number of sites globally where the scientific record and a living cultural tradition both describe the same ancient catastrophe from two entirely separate starting points, arriving at the same conclusion. What that ultimately leaves behind is a landscape that refuses to be read only one way. A tourist standing at the base of Tnorala today sees an unusual ring of red hills rising out of flat desert country, striking but easily mistaken for just another quirk of Central Australian geology. A geologist sees the eroded, compressed heart of a catastrophic asteroid or comet impact, confirmed through shatter cones, shocked quartz, and rare high-pressure minerals formed nowhere else on Earth except beneath the direct force of a genuine cosmic collision. And the Western Arrernte see Tnorala, a place where a child fell from the stars, struck the Earth, and has been searched for by grieving parents in the night sky ever since. 3 ways of understanding the exact same patch of ground, each one, in its own way, describing precisely what happened there 142 million years ago.